Hi all! Everything in my video is pulled from the public domain, and I am using them under the Fair Use, Fair Dealings guidelines. Everything I say is my own opinion. You should look into this information for yourselves, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Morning, guys. All right, here we go. Number 6. Now, I'm going to start off by reminding you that number 5 ended with them going, what about our security? What about our security? And let me remind you, articles came out showing that they had used security to go get them coffee, go get, groceries, and security was upset. Several security people quit because they felt they were being abused by them, used in a way they weren't meant to be used. Okay, so now let's jump on with number 6. Here we go. So it starts off, they're on the plane. There's Doria. There are the dogs. There's Megan. Now we know, by the way, that Doria was with them the whole time they were in Canada, and she's flying to Los Angeles with them. And Harry is like, ooh, it's the freedom flight, which I personally take offense to. We all know what a freedom flight really is. He's, we're going to go to Los Angeles. Okay, so they get there, and then all of a sudden, here comes Tyler Perry. So Tyler Perry comes in and says, I'm not a royal watcher. I saw what her dad did, though, and I could just imagine how upset she was because when fame came to me, my family changed. So I wrote her a note and told her I was praying for her and she was going to get through this. She'd found the man that she loved and I empathized with her, etc., etc. So she says, I just decided to call him and I started crying to him. And he said, what are you afraid of? And she told him, and he's basically validated all of her fears. Now, keep in mind, he just said, I'm not a royal watcher. The only thing I really knew about the royals was about Diana's death. But then he goes on to say, but I remember in an airport, she was being hounded by the press. She was holding up a tennis racket, and they threw her after her divorce to the wolves. Completely, again, ignores the fact that she was given security by the palace, and she's the one who said, I don't want that security. So right off the bat, he's eating Meghan's story and spitting it back out. Now he comes across as a religious, man. He says, I didn't want to validate her feelings because I didn't want to hurt her. He said, but I didn't want to lie to her either. He says, she said they were going to destroy her or make her go crazy. He said, I saw my mother being abused for years and I knew the symptoms and I knew it was like, and Tyler said, people were comparing her, but he says, this woman was being abused and Harry was being abused too. I was like, what? So he only knows what's being said from Meghan's side, but he's going, she's an abused woman. Harry's an abused man. He says the institution is abusive. And he says, and I love the fact that Harry and Meghan said, even though their money was going to be cut off, which by the way, it was not until a year later, and we're going to take away your security, we're still going to get out of here. He said, I just so was behind that. I just thought it was just fabulous that they weren't going to do the things that the palace wanted to make them comply. So without meeting the royal family, talking to the royal family, or getting the other side of the story, he condemns the royal family. I take back what I said about him being religious. So with that, they skip forward and they're all together on the property looking it over and how wonderful it was while we were there. And this is where Archie learned to walk for the first time. And, it's just so fabulous. And no, we didn't see the house before we came. And all we saw was the fountain. And I mean, it's like they're reminiscing. Okay. It shows them walking around on the property and it was so nice and it was a slice of life. And Doria was like, I didn't care where they landed as long as I could be with them, because it appears from what I saw that Doria was the one that was taking care of Archie almost all the time. They didn't have a nanny with them at that point. It was Doria doing the work. Tyler goes, yeah, every few weeks I'd be Googling to see if the media had figured it out yet. And I'd be like, oh no. They haven't figured it out yet. Isn't this great? They're hidden away. Nobody knows anything. And then all of a sudden they were found 6 weeks later. Next thing you know, Tyler Perry's on the news with Gayle King, Oprah's good friend, saying, yeah, we heard that they're camped out in your house. And of course, he's making light of it. Well, according to Harry, right after that, they started being bombarded. There were drones. There were, people cutting through a fence that they had put up to try to, keep people off of Tyler Perry's property. It went out through the Daily Mail where they were. Now, here's the interesting thing. It was at that point that the royal family found out where they were. Interesting. It was at this point they jumped back to the Daily Mail lawsuit, and she thought it was wrong that, they were asking for buzzwords. They wanted her emails and they wanted all of this stuff. They wanted any WhatsApp messages that mentioned William, Kate, Archie. Like the Daily Mail was like digging in there. And all Meghan kept saying is, look at how much money they're making off of us. And of course, here goes Harry. My mom also said, if you're in the tabloids, if they're writing crap about you in the tabloids, that you're probably doing things right. So I know I'm doing something right. And this was a fight worth fighting for. Now, here comes Jenny Afia again. And according to her, this case was a kitchen sink defense. So basically, they just were throwing everything in but the kitchen sink, trying to dig and find what they could. And let us remember, they found plenty. Now, keep in mind, her friends knew about that letter because she told her friends, and her friends told People magazine, and that was the premise of the lawsuit. She'd given up her right to privacy, which I happen to agree with. If you're going to tell your friends about it and the comms team about it and send drafts of it all over the place, why suddenly is it private? Now, one of her friends who spoke to People magazine goes, oh, I didn't catch the fact that somebody mentioned that letter. You do something out of love and it becomes this whole other thing. And yeah, okay. So Jenny Afia was saying this had nothing to do with the letter. Now, remember, it was at this point that they wanted the names of the friends. And Meghan goes, absolutely not. I'm not turning them over. Now, it's at this time that her friend Abigail says, well, I was meeting Meghan outside the new house in Santa Barbara because we were going to unpack and get settled, and she's showing me the home. So they hadn't even moved into the home yet. And she's like, I'm in pain. And she's holding Archie, and she fell to the ground, and she had a miscarriage. Keep in mind, that is once again a completely different story. Here's the first story that we got from her on how that miscarriage occurred. Now we have this story on how the miscarriage occurred. What did I tell you guys? Once you say something different, your credibility goes right out the window. So then, of course, Harry goes, I blame the Mail on Sunday for her miscarriage. Okay, as an ER nurse, I can tell you, filing a lawsuit and being under stress did not cause that miscarriage, okay? I myself have had several miscarriages. It was nothing I did wrong. It was nothing she did wrong. It's just one of life's mysteries. Something went wrong. You don't want, believe me, it was probably a blessing in disguise, although you didn't see it at the time. But the point is, you're told a completely different story again. So, of course, Doria gets on, oh yes, my daughter is so brave and courageous, and she wrote this thing for the paper 4 months later. I don't know why she did. She made it sound like women who have had miscarriages are in shame. I've never heard of that. I certainly didn't feel shame when I had mine. It's something that happens. It's nothing you're doing wrong. And she made it sound like nobody ever talks about it. Yes, we do. So Tim Burt, who is the strategic advisor to Archewell, comes out and says, well, they still wanted to continue on with their work around, gender equality and the environment. And of course, we know that they flew to New York on a private jet, and they went to the vaccine equality thing, Global Citizens Live. Then, of course, they went to a very poor school in the middle of Harlem. She was wearing like a $10,000 outfit and $250,000 in jewelry. And then you see about this Better Up where Harry's the chimpo and these awards that they're creating. And it's like, are you kidding? It's so tone deaf. You want to talk to people about the environment while you're flying around on private jets. It's like, just stop. Then it shows them putting Archie to bed at Tyler Perry's house, and then boom, they're in their own garden in Montecito, and they're picking oranges, and they're trying to show you how wonderful their life is. And of course, a few things come up that, again, misappropriating Diana's memory. So then, of course, you see them, they're on the lawn. There's Doria, of course. I think at this point, she might even be living with them. And they're kicking the ball around. And isn't it just wonderful, this life that they've built? And, here they are in the kitchen, sitting around, eating breakfast. It's so fabulous, and they're going on hikes, and their life is just so wonderful. And we went rogue, and we're sneaking off to a beach on our own. And then Megan gets kind of creepy here. She turns around. Most people go, "Hey, honey," or "Wow, babe." She turns around and goes, "Oh, my love. Look at this. Isn't this just amazing and wonderful?" And she talks to him in a way, it's like speaking to a small child. I'm sorry, it's kind of creepy. Okay, then it brings up the pregnancy again. Now, of course, we know these pictures are Photoshopped. That tree behind them was added afterwards. I did a whole video on this. It shows Megan with 6 toes. It's like weird. Now, that announcement, as it turns out, was put out the same day that Diana's announcement was put out that she was pregnant with Harry, and Harry wants you to believe that that's simply a coincidence. I don't think so. Now, at this point, they start talking about they're going to do the Oprah interview, and they swear that it's been a year since they came over, and they were talking about it, and Harry was like, this was just supposed to be, that since they had come to the United States, a vacuum was being built, and people genuinely thought that they didn't understand what they were doing, and this was supposed to be a year of transition, but it ended up being more than a transition. And so they just decided that they were going to tell the world their story. Now, we're all aware that during this Oprah interview, they told, or I should say Megan told, multiple lies. She got caught in multiple verified lies, and even the one that Harry said about the baby's color, they couldn't get their story straight. So the night before the Oprah interview, the bullying claim dropped because I think people in the UK were just sick to death of Meghan and Harry and their crap. So of course they put out a statement, "This is a character assassination. That's all it is. You're assassinating me. It's not true." And, of course the friends were like, "Somebody's panicking over there. They're going to try to stop this." Okay, so again, that they went on the Oprah interview. You saw what happened. They were caught in multiple lies. We were married 3 days earlier. Oh, they were worried about multiple conversations while I was pregnant about Archie's skin tone, which of course Harry said, didn't happen. And just lie after lie after lie. And so she said they were trying to get back at them for this. So when it was over, they go back to the house and they wait for it to air. And when it was airing, they had Doria taking pictures of them. How freaking creepy is that? They filmed themselves watching themselves lying on TV. And you would think when it was over, they'd be upset. No, they high-fived each other and kissed each other. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm not kidding. They were so proud of themselves. Now it shows them the next day, they're sitting in their office and Megan is on the phone with Doria and they have a simple conversation. Now keep in mind, somebody else is professionally filming this. And then all of a sudden Megan goes, "Oh, Beyonce just texted me." And Harry's like, "What?" Harry freaks out. So of course, Megan reads the text out loud. "Oh, you should feel safe and protected, and you've been chosen to fix generational pain," whatever. I don't believe that. And I might say that Neil Sean checked with Beyonce's people, and they're claiming that that's untrue. So they show the royal family being accused of being racist. And then Tyler Perry comes on and goes, there's so much more Meghan could have said, but she's such a classy, elegant woman that she didn't, because of course he believes every word that drips from her mouth. And Tyler Perry calls her and says, did you know the palace put out a statement? And that's when Meghan reads out the whole, recollections may vary statement from the Queen. Now, right after that, Harry shows Meghan, look, it's a text from William. And Tyler goes, okay, I'll let you get off the phone. And Harry's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. What am I supposed to do with that? And Meghan's like, just breathe, honey, it's okay. Now, of course, they jump forward to Easter, and they're putting out Easter eggs for Archie, and they're trying to make it a normal whatever for him. I don't understand really the point of all that, but okay. Then they jump forward to the death of Prince Philip, and Harry starts talking about, I just loved my grandfather and I respected him and we had such a wonderful relationship, and look at the taxi cabs that were lined up down the mall for him, and on and on and on. And he shows some wonderful photos of him and his grandfather. And how am I going to get back? And what am I going to do? And Meghan has to stay behind because she's so pregnant she can't fly. And the COVID test. What they don't tell you was, let's not forget that Grandpa didn't stick around for the Sandringham Summit because he was so disgusted with Harry. Let's not forget that Harry did the Oprah interview while Philip was dying. He had been warned Philip was dying. Don't do it now. And he went ahead with it anyway. And then he goes, well, my grandfather died peacefully and happy. No, Harry, he didn't. He died upset with what you were doing. And then one of his friends comes on and goes, and there was Harry walking behind that hearse again. I could just imagine. Nobody made him fly over. Nobody made him participate in Philip's funeral. And then he basically complained that the family wouldn't talk to him. I mean, are you kidding? Harry goes, my brother and my dad were focused on the same misinterpretation of the whole situation, and I couldn't talk to them. Are you kidding? This was right after Oprah. All right. Then they jump forward. The baby is born, and they show some cute pictures of a baby. Have to assume, because this time I think she did give birth. Anyway, they go forward and, we're such a happy family and she's such a great baby and everything is just wonderful. And, we just have the best life. Harry goes, Archie looks like Meghan, but Lily is a Spencer. She's like my mom. Oh my God, he keeps appropriating his mother. Now, I have to tell you, I don't know Tyler Perry. I don't know anything about him. I don't watch his movies. But this next bit, he dropped to me. I don't know who he is. He says, well, they called me up and asked me to be Lily's godfather. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. He says, but then I had to stop and call them back and tell them that if we have to go to Britain with those people over there, then I'm sorry, I can't be the godfather. I mean, again, he doesn't know anything about the royal family except what he's heard. Okay. Then they go on and show Archie playing the piano, and they show, Harry with his friends, and he's playing polo, and, Lily's birthday party. They show Eugenie coming for a visit. I always said I thought she was the mole in the family. They're trying to let you know that they have such a wonderful, perfect life. Everything is just absolutely fabulous. They don't need anything because their lives are just so wonderful. Then they go back to the Mail on Sunday appeal. Harry's, writing a letter to somebody. And then Jenny Afia comes on and says, they decided the case and they decided it in Meghan's favor. And then the Associated Press appealed. And she goes, we just thought it was because they wanted more clickbait. It's at this point that Jenny Afia goes, well, this man came forward to give a witness statement that wasn't required, and it was going to damage Meghan's reputation, which it did, because we found out that she perjured herself in her statement in court about not having anything to do with finding freedom. And we found out that Harry also wrote a letter and said, we have to be able to say we had nothing to do with this. They were liars. No big surprise here. They skip right over this portion of the documentary and don't mention her perjury or Harry's letter at all. Now, it's at this point I think we really get a little picture of what Meghan's really like behind the scenes, because she is such a smart butt at this point, and she's like, I'm not going to say anything against your brother, but it's so obvious. We know what's really going on here. And I mean that, boom, there's the real Meghan Markle. There she is. So it's right after that, Meghan goes on one of these shows and she says, you know what, no matter what it is, if you know you're right, you should stand up. You have to stand up and you have to know the difference between right and wrong. Right after she was caught perjuring. Well, then they show Jenny Affia calling her up to tell her that she won the case. What they leave out is the fact that the only reason that she won that case is because the Mail on Sunday printed more than 40% of the letter. If they had printed less than 40%, she would have lost. But they conveniently leave that out. She also demanded a front page apology, which she did not get. She wanted something like in this size font. She didn't get that either. She won $1 in damages, and she won some other damages that she said she was going to donate. And we never heard again from anybody else about that money or where and when it was donated. Then it shows Harry and Meghan going to the first Archibald holiday party, which is just like 6 or 7 people. And I think half the people there don't even work for them anymore because they've lost a whole bunch of their staff again. All right. Then Meghan's like, I have to come back to where I used to be. And it shows her doing yoga. Now, the next thing is she wanted to reconnect. So remember her niece that she blew off and who didn't get to go to the wedding, and Meghan said it was because of the palace, and the palace is now saying that that's a flat out lie. So she called her and she wanted to reconnect with her. And so this girl is so desperate to have somebody in the family that Ashley went right back in and was like, oh, I'm so lucky I get to be here and I get to be in the kids' life and I get to watch them grow. And she doesn't even bring up the fact that she wasn't at Meghan's wedding for other reasons than what Meghan said. So then they show Harry getting in his Audi and driving, and they're like, what do you miss? And he goes, I miss the get-togethers at the institution, and I miss the UK, and I miss my friends, and and he said, and I've lost a few friends in this process because I've changed. I've outgrown my environment. Then Nacho comes on. This is what he's always wanted. And then of course he says, this is one of the places where my mom would have ended up living, Everything is Meghan, Diana, and the bad paparazzi, and my family suck. Meghan, Diana, the bad paparazzi, and my family suck. That's what the whole thing is. And they want you to believe that they just have this wonderful life. But of course, we all know that's not true, because if your life was that wonderful, you wouldn't constantly be putting out story after story about it. Now, you should know, in response to the allegations that Mr. Knopf submitted the voluntary witness statement in connection with the Daily Mail litigation, they came out and said the claims were false. He was asked to provide evidence by both the Duchess of Sussex and the newspaper, and he was advised by an attorney that the evidence in his possession could be relevant, and he provided this directly to the court as he was asked to do. Of course, Meghan and Harry came back and said, we never asked you to provide a witness statement, and our attorneys believe that Mr. Knopf remained neutral, or they do not believe that he was neutral by submitting the witness statement for the Associated newspaper. What they're upset about is it basically showed that Meghan lied in court, which damaged her reputation. It did. And they end the whole thing by thanking everybody who supported them. You guys would like to think that this is the end of this, but I think we all know it's not. All right, just a few more things here at the end. Netflix is not doing well. They had to give some advertisers back their money. They lost a lot of money on the stock market, and Harry and Meghan are being branded. They're being branded. It's not going well for them. Now, at the same time, you should know that a police officer, the top cop, stepped forward to combat the comment that Meghan made about the police not helping her. You should know that, as I told you before, Prince Harry tried to sweet talk the Queen to get his way. It didn't work. And now it's coming out that Harry and Meghan are demanding an apology. And the royal family is like, you're not going to get an apology until you basically admit your own faults, which I think we all know won't happen. This ought to be interesting. Now, I wish I could give credit where credit is due. I can't. I don't know where this came from. But this is like 100 and something things that have been shown to be lies or misrepresented from the Oprah interview, from other interviews, from this show. I mean, they're just stacking up. It's an unbelievable amount. Really quickly, I want you to also know that their show was watched by millions, but the first episode was 2.4 million. But by the third episode, it was down to 800,000. They'd lost over 1.6 million. But I think people are just sick of the whole woe is me. On Rotten Tomatoes, it had a score of 48% from critics and 12% from viewers. And the IMDb gave it a score of 4.3 out of 10. In other words, it's got crappy scores and crappy viewership. All right, guys, that's the end of number 6. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't know Tyler Perry. I've never seen any of his stuff. I know nothing about him. I do know that when this whole thing started off, I thought he sounded like a very religious, benevolent person. And now I realize he's just as tainted as everybody else because he's not interested in seeing the other side. He's just going to take everything that, Harry and Meghan are throwing out and run with it. That does it for me in my book. All right. And I'm done. Moving on. I hope you guys enjoyed my take on these 6 series. That was a lot. Okay. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell. Don't forget to go into the description box. My Twitter, my Getter, my Rumble, my email, my Patreon. All my links are there. If you've donated through the Coffee Fund or through the thanks button, thank you so much. And as always, have a great day.